They spied on my home and told the community I was neglecting my property, saying, "They're bringing down the neighborhood." Enraged, I renovated beautifully and won the local garden award. They stared in shock, asking, "How did you do it?" I replied, "By minding my own business." Their defeat was perfect revenge. I moved into my house in Charleston, South Carolina, a few years ago. It was a modest place with potential, but the yard needed work. Between my job and other responsibilities, I hadn't gotten around to fixing it up. The grass was overgrown, weeds were sprouting, and the flower beds were empty. I knew it didn't look great, but I figured I'd get to it eventually. One evening, while I was sitting on my porch, I overheard my neighbors, the Hendersons, talking to another couple from down the street. They were standing near the sidewalk, and their voices carried over. "It's such a shame about that house," Mrs. Henderson said. "It's bringing down the whole neighborhood." "I know," the other woman replied. "Some people just don't care about their property." Their words stung. I had always minded my own business and expected others to do the same, but it seemed my neighbors had other ideas. Over the next few weeks, I noticed them glancing disapprovingly at my yard and whispering among themselves. The final straw came when I received a letter from the Homeowners Association citing complaints about my neglected property. I was livid. If they wanted to see change, I'd give them change. I took a week off work and dove headfirst into a full-scale renovation of my yard. I researched native plants, sustainable landscaping, and consulted with a local garden center. Every day, from dawn till dusk, I was out there, digging, planting, mulching. I installed a charming white picket fence, laid down a stone pathway, and added a cozy bench under an old oak tree. Neighbors would slow down as they passed by, some even stopping to watch. The Hendersons were among them, their expressions a mix of curiosity and disbelief. By the end of the month, my yard was unrecognizable. Vibrant flowers bloomed in carefully curated beds, the grass was lush and green, and a small vegetable garden thrived in one corner. It wasn't long before the local gardening club took notice and nominated me for the annual Best Yard Award. To my astonishment, and I'm sure the Hendersons' dismay, I won. The day after the awards were announced, I was back on my porch, sipping lemonade, when Mrs. Henderson approached. "Your yard looks lovely," she said, forcing a smile. "How did you manage all this?" I took a slow sip of my drink, savoring the moment. Then, with a smile, I replied, "By minding my own business." She blinked, taken aback. Without another word, she turned and walked away. From that day on, the whispers stopped. The disapproving glances ceased. And I continued to enjoy my home, just as I always had. Only now, with a view of the most beautiful yard in the neighborhood. Things stayed quiet for a while after that. No more notes from the HOA. No more comments from passing neighbors. Even the Hendersons kept their distance. It felt good. I finally had peace. I started spending more time outside. Early mornings with coffee on the bench I built. Late afternoons tending to my garden. I even started talking with a few other neighbors. Small talk, nothing deep. But it felt like maybe things were turning around. Then, something weird started happening. First, it was my mailbox. One morning I found it hanging by a screw. At first, I thought maybe it was just old. I fixed it and let it go. A few days later, one of my garden beds looked like someone had walked right through it. Plants trampled, soil kicked up. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I convinced myself it could have been an animal. A raccoon or stray dog, maybe. Then came the trash. One morning I stepped out and found a full garbage bag tossed over my fence. It was ripped open, and the smell hit me like a punch to the face. I cleaned it up, irritated, but still holding on to hope it was just some kids messing around. But it kept happening. Small things. A broken sprinkler head. Garden tools disappearing. My porch light shattered one night. I installed cameras. I didn't tell anyone. I kept them small and tucked under the eaves of the roof. A few days later, I caught something. Or rather, someone. It was Mr. Henderson. He was out at 2 a.m., walking his dog. But instead of sticking to the sidewalk, he wandered onto my lawn. Looked around. then casually tipped over one of my new flower pots. The next video showed his wife the following night. She walked by my fence, looked directly into my yard, and threw something over, what I later found out was raw chicken bits, into my vegetable garden. I couldn't believe it. After everything, they were still at it. Worse, they were getting sneakier about it. I saved the footage, dated it, labeled everything. I wasn't going to confront them yet. I wanted a full picture first. Then came the HOA meeting. I didn't usually go, but this time I showed up quietly and sat in the back. Halfway through, the Hendersons raised their hands. Mrs. Henderson started talking about neighborhood standards and how some homeowners were now going overboard, creating an unsafe attraction for insects and rodents. She was talking about me. I waited until she was done, then stood up. I actually have something to share, I said. Calm, clear. I pulled out a USB and handed it to the board president. You might want to take a look at this footage. It shows who's really disturbing the neighborhood. There was silence in the room. I left without another word. The next day, everything shifted again. But not in the way I thought it would. I didn't hear anything for a week after the HOA meeting. The board president never followed up. No email, no letter, nothing. I figured maybe they were still reviewing the footage. Or maybe they didn't want to get involved. Then I got another letter. But this one wasn't from the HOA. It was anonymous. No return address. Just a plain envelope with a printed note inside. You've made the wrong enemies. Maybe you should worry less about your garden and more about your safety. I read it twice. Then a third time. My hands shook. I wasn't scared exactly, but something about the wording, how cold it was, got under my skin. I put the letter in a drawer, locked it, and backed up all my security footage. I also installed another camera, hidden better this time. That same night, I noticed something strange on my porch. Just a faint scent at first, chemicals. Then I looked closer and saw a burn mark near the bottom of my wooden steps. Like someone had poured something flammable and set a small fire that didn't catch. I called the police. They took a report. But without proof of who did it, there wasn't much they could do. They asked about enemies. I told them about the Hendersons, but said I had no physical evidence they'd done this. The cops left after a quick sweep, saying they'd keep an eye out. So I decided to do something I hadn't done yet. I talked to my neighbor 2 houses down. Mike, retired Army, keeps to himself but has always nodded politely when we crossed paths. I told him everything. He listened, arms crossed, silent. Then he said, "You're not the first." Apparently, 3 years ago, the people who lived in my house before me also had problems with the Hendersons. Same pattern. Petty complaints. Harassment. HOA citations. Then one day, they just moved. No notice. No goodbye. They sold below market value and left. I asked him why no one else said anything. Most people around here just want quiet. No drama. They don't want to pick sides. I nodded. I understood. But I wasn't leaving. The next night, things escalated. I woke up at 3:12 a.m. to loud banging. Not on the door, on my garden fence. I looked at my camera feed and saw 2 people in dark hoodies trying to rip out the trellis I'd built with my own hands. They had gloves. They moved fast. One of them had a small crowbar. I hit the panic button that dialed the police and stepped outside with a flashlight. I didn't say a word, just pointed the beam at them. They ran, fast, disappearing into the night. When the cops arrived, I showed them the footage. One of the officers squinted at the screen, then asked to review my past videos. After watching a few, he sighed. "We'll open a harassment case," he said. "But you might want to think about getting a restraining order. If you can match one of these people to the Hendersons, that could help." It was enough to make me dig deeper. I sent the footage to a private investigator. Yep, I hired one. If the HOA wouldn't take action, I'd do it myself. I gave the guy a folder, the dates, and the names. Told him I wanted to know everything about the Hendersons and if they had a record. What he found blew me away. The private investigator took about 2 weeks. He came back with a folder, thick with printouts and photos. I met him at a small diner on the edge of town. He slid the folder across the table without saying much. Just nodded. Inside? Let's just say the Hendersons had a past. Turns out, this wasn't the first time they had done this kind of thing. They'd lived in 3 neighborhoods before this one, and in each one, they'd filed multiple complaints with their HOA. Noise, trash, property lines, even fake animal control reports. Always targeting 1 or 2 houses until they moved or got cited hard enough to sell. In one case, someone lost their job after a fake complaint reached their employer. That's when it clicked. This wasn't just about property. It was power. Control. They liked being the king and queen of the block. And anyone who didn't play their way had to go. I felt sick. Then I felt furious. I could have kept trying to play by the rules. But they weren't. And I was done being the quiet one. So I made a plan. First, I compiled everything. HOA letters, photos, footage, anonymous notes, and the PI report. I printed it, bound it, and sent a copy to every member of the HOA board certified mail. I included timestamps. I included a list of past addresses where similar incidents happened. I even found a few old neighbors on Facebook who backed up the story. Then I posted online. On local Facebook groups, on Nextdoor, even on the city subreddit. I used screenshots, careful redactions, and a calm tone. No threats. Just facts. It exploded. People started talking. Fast. A few others on the same street came forward. Small things they'd brushed off. Garden damage, passive-aggressive notes, false reports to the city. The dots started connecting. Within days, someone filed a formal complaint with the city about the Hendersons. I didn't do it, but I knew what it was about, the zoning violation behind their house. A tiny illegal addition they'd built years ago and never registered. It wasn't up to code. Never had been. The city came knocking. Then the HOA held an emergency meeting. I showed up early. This time I sat in front. When the president stood up to speak, he didn't even look at the Hendersons. Due to overwhelming evidence and complaints, he said, the board is issuing a cease and desist order regarding harassment and property sabotage. If this continues, legal action will follow. Mr. Henderson stood up. This is slander. Mrs. Henderson tried to speak, but her voice cracked. That's when I pulled out my final move. I recorded a call, I said. And I played it. 2 weeks ago, I'd called the HOA's complaint line pretending to be someone else. I asked how to anonymously report a neighbor. The woman on the phone walked me through it and casually mentioned a frequent caller, Mrs. Henderson, by name. I had the recording, the date, the voice. It was legal in South Carolina. One-party consent. Their faces turned white. That night, I came home and found their for sale sign out front. 2 weeks later, they were gone. Their lawn was dead. Their backyard overgrown. Their windows dirty. They left in a rush. But here's the thing, I changed too. This whole time, I thought I was just defending myself. But somewhere along the way, I turned into something else. I used tactics I never thought I would. I exposed people publicly. I ruined reputations. Was it justified? Maybe. But I won't lie, part of me enjoyed watching them fall. Part of me liked the power. That's the part one have to live with. My yard is still beautiful. I still sit outside in the evenings, sip lemonade, nod to passing neighbors. But the peace? It's not quite the same.